शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्।
Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om sir.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
YouTube is translating Hari Om as how do you do in the live translation. How do you do? How do you do? Okay, start. Aham nirvikalpo nirakar rupi. प्रातस्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तिमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनम् आकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति. We'll chant from verse number 29. Verse number 29 to 33. प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत्. प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत्. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः. ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न्यसूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान् चेतसः ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान् चेतसः सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति Okay, so we were discussing on the gunas and the combination of gunas. Every individual is a combination of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and a bulk of last class was taken to describe, especially for the newcomers, what is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And he'll continue in this line of thought for the next couple of verses. Are there any questions? Hanji, Rashmi ji.
I have 3 questions actually. So in the verse 28, in the book itself, in almost the last paragraph, the state of perfection could be absolute or relative, meaning a complete or partial identification with the self. This I did not understand.
Complete identification. The state of perfection could be absolute or relative, meaning a complete or partial identification with the self. When a person has practically no insight into the distinctions between the inner self and the outer activities, he remains fully involved. As he gains knowledge, identifies more, becomes less attached. Thus, he acquires more and more objectivity until he reaches the state of perfection. So, what he's saying is that perfection can be understood in a relative form or an absolute form. A relative perfection means one who is objective, one who is detached. For all practical purposes, in the eyes of the majority of the world, they are spiritually perfect. It's not absolute perfection, it's not enlightenment, they're not necessarily enlightened, but it is a relative perfection. It's like saying anyone with 100 crores in the bank is rich. They may not be Mukesh Ambani, they may not be able to buy the biggest, flashiest apartments in Gurgaon now. Now, maybe Aralias they can buy, but not Camellias. But will you agree with me? 100 crores, is it rich? Anyone disagreeing? See, they ask me why you give so much finance examples, money examples, because that's what we understand. This is the language we speak all day. That's why we use these examples. Maybe a couple of decades ago, 10 crores would be rich. Now, inflation. So 100 crores is rich. It's not an Ambani, and forget Ambani, it's not even a mid-level industrialist. But it's rich, right? So it's a relative richness. It's not absolute, it's not the ultimate, right? So similarly, when you embark on the state of um, spiritual wisdom, what happens is once you begin to apply this knowledge in your life, once you begin to gain an understanding of the play of vasanas and gunas, once you see, assess, understand the nature of the world as it is, you gain a gradual detachment from the world, at least from your immediate surroundings. Slowly, you gain a gradual detachment. Now, this gradual detachment is not absolute perfection, it's not complete detachment, it's relative. It's a partial identification with the self, right? So, this is vis-a-vis to, as he says, when a person has practically no insight into the distinction between the Prakriti and Purusha, the self and the gunas. We've been talking about Prakriti and Purusha. Someone who has no insight into it is completely ignorant. Someone who has some insight into it and has invested some amount of time and understanding to educate themselves on the differences, chances are you study this knowledge for a couple of months, gradually you will develop some partial insight, right? That's partial perfection, that's relative perfection. For all practical purposes, you'll be beyond 95% of the world, 99% of the world. So, for all practical purposes, you'll have all the knowledge to be a perfect human being. Sure, it's not enlightenment, it's not the ultimate. For that, little more work is required. Okay, second question.
Second question is from your other book.
Okay.
In that it's mentioned when all the vasanas of all individuals are regarded collectively, it's called Ishvara. And I'm not reading the whole portion. What I understand, other than this also, if Ishvara doesn't align, then even the power of 25,000 forces cannot force you to perform an action. But if Ishvara, the collective force of nature, aligns, then even the power of 25,000 forces cannot prevent you from undertaking the action. I thought it was very beautiful, but I did not understand the whole thing.
Okay, verse number.
It's 27 in the other book.
Akash nature is different from alliance nature, land cover from action, from chaos from nature. All the activities happening from quantity nature, but it is the most minute or the most significant thinking. Karma is caused by Ishvara, a collective force of its nature. If Ishvara is an alignment, power cannot force you to perform an action. Collective force of nature aligns in partial powers and prevent you from undertaking the action. Okay, so the concept of the concept of Ishvara is very interesting. When we talk about an individual's nature, we call it vasana, right? But when we talk about the collective nature of the entire environment, right? The collective nature of the srishti, the creation around you, that's called Ishvara. Okay, of course we use Ishvara in a slightly different context, you know, but if you really think deep about it, it's quite related. That power with which, it's like the underlying force of the world is Ishvara, right? So even if you look at Ishvara in this definition, what is the force that is manifesting the world? What is the underlying push of the world? The collective vasana of the world that is causing the world to be as it is, right? So collective vasanas of the environment is called Ishvara, and you can think of Ishvara as a massive tailwind, right? So you are not, as we say, vasanas manifest in a conducive environment, right? When the environment is not ripe, you may have individually, you may have some vasanas, but they won't manifest, or they won't manifest easily at least, right? A child in their teenage will not manifest the desires of parenthood. Giving example, right? A child in their early teens, you know, if you ask any teenager, do you want children? No, no, I don't want children. The moment they done late 20s, shift happens, and in their mid 30s, they spend all their time rearing children. Does that mean that they were lying when they were teenagers? No, those vasanas were um, unmanifest, dormant. So even though you may have some vasanas individually, if your environment, and the environment starts with your body, the environment starts with your own physical body. If your own physical body and the environment around you doesn't support it, it will not manifest. Vasanas only manifest in a conducive environment, unless and until the vasanas are very, very strong. If the vasanas are very, very strong, greater than the power of 25,000 horses, very rare, right? So it's not impossible, but it's improbable. That's why he's using, so 25,000 horses is just a, we call, what do we call it? What is the power generated by your car? We give it a name, horsepower. Uh, it's a certain unit of force, right? Horsepower. So 25,000 horsepower. Think about it. Massive, massive truck. So if your environment isn't conducive, you cannot force an action. And if the environment is conducive, you cannot resist the action. You cannot run away from it. Right? All it's trying to say is that it's not only your own nature, but the environment around you also that's influencing your nature. So, as you assess, we've been talking about assessment as an important tool for understanding, relating to the world, and living harmoniously. So when you make that assessment, don't only assess another person by their individual qualities, but also the circumstances they are in, also the world around them, also the kind of influence they have been under, right? The word in Sanskrit is called mahat. It'll only make you more empathetic. It'll make you more empathetic that a person is not only a victim of their individual nature, but their entire environment, right? That doesn't mean anything is justified. It's not what we're saying. It's only asking you to have the right expectations. Rare is a person who can function independent from their environment, independent from their circumstances. Rare is a person who can do that. You have to mold your environment. You can't go against it. You can't disregard it. You have to try to mold the environment, or you have to consciously try to be in an environment that supports your choices. That's the meaning of satsang. You need to keep satsang. Satsang is those 25,000 horses that help you do things you want to do. Dussang is that 25,000 horses that resist you, that prevent you from taking the path you want to take. So Dussang has a very important role to play. Satsang has a very important role to play. So on top of your own nature, what is the company you keep? Third question.
Third question is from verse 29, so we can do it later at the end of it. It's the
Acha, you
place.
You
Yes.
moved ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We'll take up 29 as we take it up in class right now. Yes, Rituji.
Uh, I was just listening to this discussion. So, can we remotely also understand it as what we've always read and understood as heredity versus environment, that uh, thing that talks about a person's nature? So, is it the same context? Is the same kind of an understanding that you were explaining just now?
No, what is the understanding? Like, what is the concept? What is hereditary versus nature?
It's like you were just talking about vasanas and the environment,
Yeah,
like Ishvara, jo, what you were saying.
correct.
So the vasana is the heredity that we're born with, like what we've understood and we've studied the general understanding that is given in schools and that way, and the Ishvara being the environment uh, that we are in. So,
Yeah, that can certainly be an understanding. That can be one
okay,
concept.
okay.
So, you're not placed into an environment by chance. You
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have landed
Yes.
here because there are
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, complementary or relevant sort of
Mm-hmm.
asanas, So it's not that the environment you are in is completely opposed to your own individual asanas as well. That's why we call it collective asanas, right? So the idea is just that you may not have the power to change the environment, but you may have the power to change your environment, right? So the extent to which you can exercise this, be conscious of the effect of your environment on you and choose satsang. That's the idea. Satsang
Uh,
is nothing but good company. Company means environment. The kind of people, the kind of things, the kind of time of the day, the kind of schedule you follow, the kind of books you read, the kind of thoughts you entertain, the kind of videos you watch, the kind of music you listen to, all of this is either satsang or dussang, any stimuli that is entering you. That's your environment. Okay.
so one a question that I was unable to do the last class, sir. So, Ishvara, what you explaining to us, is very different from Devata as we understand it.
Is that very different from?
Devatas.
Yeah. So, Ishvara in, Ishvara, Taijasa, Hiranyagarbha, all of these are very technical terms used in the context of Vasanas. Devta also has a certain connotation to it. Bhagavan also has a certain connotation to it.
Okay.
When you think deeply about it, they refer to different aspects of or different powers of big G God, right? So those that emulate, certain descriptions of big G God, we give it different names. In one context, we call it Bhagavan. In one context, we call it Devta, right? um, देवता कौन है जिसमें दैव गुण है, right? Who has divine qualities is a devta. Now, in fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives the definition of what are the divine qualities. When you go to chapter 16, the entire chapter 16 is nothing but a Daiva Sura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. That's the name of the chapter. The distinction between the qualities of the Daiva and Asura. And who is a Daiva? One who has Daiva qualities becomes a Devta eventually. Right? One who perfects the Daivic qualities is a Devta. Worthy of worship. You can think of it as that, right? Worthy of worship, a commander in their lineage. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Utsav, I was just listening to Swamiji's video on chapter 3, in which he was explaining the yagna which we had done. He quoted Swami Ramatirtha, the way to gain anything is to lose it.
Correct.
So, would you just elaborate on this, please?
The way to gain anything is to lose it. So, famous words by Swami Ramatirtha, perhaps one of the most, um, perhaps the least known amazing Vedantin of his times. And that's because he chose to be, maintain a low profile, and he lived a very short life, all about the age of 33, I believe, or slightly. So, around my age, he was already a self-realized, enlightened, incredible human being, and he was done. He was done with his life. In that little life of his, he had an incredible spark. So Swami Ramatirtha said many incredible things. You should get his set of books. It's called In Woods of God Realization. It's a volume of multiple books which he didn't write. They are simply sort of recordings of his lecture, notes from his lecture, essentially verbatim notes of his lectures. He didn't write them. This is what he spoke. So they have a different energy to them. When you read it, you can almost imagine him at the pulpit and saying it with all energy and power.
What was the name?
In Woods of God Realization. I would urge you start with volume 1 and maybe once in a couple of days read one of the lectures. They're all 3-4 page sort of lectures. And he begins every lecture by saying, my own self in the form of ladies and gentlemen. It's like me telling you all, my own self in the form of Krishnaji. So every lecture he begins with that, my own self in the form of ladies and gentlemen. And very energetic. Anyway, so in Woods of God Realization, in one of those, and Swamiji is a big fan of his. Swami Parthasarathi is a big fan of Swami Ramatirtha. He said, almost all the conviction I got in this knowledge was because of Swami Ramatirtha. This is what he said at some point. So, big fan. So, Swami Ramatirtha says, the way to gain anything is to lose it. And very often we speak in poetic terms, in almost paradoxical terms, just to make you think what is trying to be conveyed. So here he's trying to convey the idea of detachment. The way to gain anything is to lose the attachment for it. You have to read between the lines. What does he mean by lose it? He doesn't mean remove it. He doesn't mean get rid of it. That's a silly understanding. If that was it, then, so most of the world thinks that spirituality is about leaving things and getting away from things. No. What you have to do is lose your attachment for it. So if you want to gain anything, if you want anything to flourish, if you want anything to sustain and grow and become beautiful, you have to play your part and be detached. Nothing but a yajna. Right? This is what he said in Tasmat, verse number 19. Therefore, without attachment, always perform actions that should be done. By performing action, you reach the supreme. The way to gain anything is to lose it. You play your part and lose the attachment for it. This is true for your business, this is true for your relationship, this is true for anything. You want to gain the love of your children, you lose your attachment for them. If you are attached to your children, ironically, paradoxically, they'll develop a strong dislike They'll feel like you're breathing down their neck. Lose it. Lose your attachment. Play your part and let it happen. Play your part and let them lead their lives the way they choose to. They'll stumble and they'll come back to you. That's the funny part. If you turn out to be a friend of your child, then they will find their way back to you. You would have actually gained a much deeper relationship. But instead, we believe that the way to gain anything is to hoard it, to cling on to it, to breathe down its neck, to be attached to it, to obsess about it. So what Ramatirtha says is that if you want to truly sustain or gain, possess anything, you have to become detached to it. What you are detached to, you gain. What you are attached to, you lose. In fact, the same Ramatirtha goes to the extent of saying that by attaching yourself to something, you are courting your separation. He goes to the extent of saying that. I don't know. I still don't know. After 15 years of having heard that, I don't know how cosmically he comes to that conclusion, but it seems to work. He says, he's being mystical about it. He's saying that by attaching yourself, by clinging to something, you're actually. He goes to the extent of saying, one of you will die. Those are the actual words in the lecture. Die doesn't mean necessarily physical death. It means disappear from the other's life. In that sense, a separation. People take this concept of attachment and detachment too easily. Again, he's talking about detachment. Let's be practical. Little bit of attachment is needed. Let's be practical. That's what most people think. Even that slightest bit of attachment is a limitation. So, with that utmost conviction, he says, you want to gain something? Lose your attachment for it. Play your part and let nature take its course. That's the secret to successful and joyful living in life. People do one or the other. They leave it, but they don't play their part. So either they cling on to it or they totally forget about it. They don't play their part. The important thing is to perform actions which should be done, which needs to be done. You have a certain role to play it to the best of your ability. And what happens out of it, whether the other person understands, whether it actually works out, whether you succeed, leave that to nature.
Yeah, he said, you must do what you ought to do, not what you like to do. Swamiji said in that video.
Sounds like Swamiji.
So sometimes this disincentivizes you to do your role in the very proper manner. If you don't feel that whatever you're doing, if that thing is not going on well, so then you probably try to correct it. As you said, that you do your duty, you have done your duty, but still you feel it's not materializing it well. So you probably
Problem is we get disincentivized so easily, but we don't actually diagnose the action. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do properly? It's very easy to blame the circumstances and blame the other thing and blame that, it's not working out. But is there actually a true diagnosis to, am I doing what I'm supposed to do properly? 99% of the times, 100% of the time, if you fix what you need to do, you need to be doing, then the problem will also fix itself. The outcome is a natural progression from the cause. So when we don't see a particular effect, we say, this is pointless. There's no point of this. But actually, we don't actually put in the right cause completely. We don't perform action with detachment. We don't see it through. So if a objective person were to come and diagnose the situation, they'll see the cause isn't correct. How will the effect be there? And we think, oh, the entire universe is against us only. I am doing what I'm supposed to do, but it's not working out for me. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you putting in the right cause? It's cause and effect. So partially doing what you're supposed to do also is not going to yield the result. Then you can sit and complain about the result. There's no room for negotiation out here. Lord Krishna is not saying do a little bit of what you're supposed to do. He's saying do what you ought to do. You must have a complete adoption of of this. So I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. But I guess this is what they say, that life works out. Hmm? This is what people mean by life works out, and it requires a lot of wisdom, a lot of lived wisdom to actually come to that conclusion. Because in the beginning we feel that, oh, we need to be in control and we need to direct everything and we need to make sure everything is in a proper way. But one with lived wisdom shrugs their shoulders and says life works out. Now either we listen to that wisdom or we disregard it. We think, no, they don't know what they're talking about. They didn't achieve much in their life. How? I want to do much more. we dismiss wisdom. But ages after ages, the sages have spoken this truth. Forget sages, people in our families have spoken this truth, who have lived life. You put in the cause, the effect will come. The right effect will come. It may not be the effect you expected or you wanted. The right effect will come. Have that much faith in life. You're so well taken care of. You have everything you need to live and sustain. Nature is giving you exactly the right amount of oxygen, the right amount of pressure, the right temperature. It's giving you everything you need to sustain physiologically. Why we doubt it psychologically, we don't know. Why do we have such a doubt? It's because underlying there's an ego. I am doing this.
We are self-centered a bit.
There's an ego that I am doing this. I am creating this. I am sustaining myself. I am responsible. A lot of kartritva. You get rid of the kartritva. Verse number 29.
Sir, can I just pause you?
Yeah.
While we're talking about all this, what exactly is attachment? Like, do you spot it while you're going through life, performing your actions? Thinking that maybe you're doing it in a detached way, but sometimes you don't know that you're even getting attached while you're in the midst of something.
Yeah.
What attachment?
Attachment, again, if we have to break it down to its first principles, attachment is an uncontrolled flow of thought. At the very basic, this is what attachment is, an uncontrolled flow of thought. If you cannot stop thinking about something, it means those are the initial fibers of attachment. If a batsman in the middle of the pitch cannot stop thinking, am I going to score 100? 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 And they're finding it hard to dismiss the thought. It means they are attached to the idea of scoring 100. So fundamentally, uncontrolled thought towards an object of being implies that you are attached to that object of being. It could be for anything, to acquire and enjoy it, to protect it, for its safety, for its growth, for anything. The thought can be for anything. That attachment grows and swells into a sense of mindness. That attachment grows into a sense of mindness, or rather, it is amplified by a sense of mindness. This is mine. I need it. I want it. Or I don't want to lose it. So that sense of mindness amplifies this attachment. And it blinds you into believing that it's going to last forever. So when you're deep into the rabbit hole of attachment, you lose your sense of impermanence of things. So you believe that what is will last forever. Even the thought of separating from it is jarring, let alone the actual separation from it. How does it begin? It begins with an uncontrolled thought. It begins with a slight discomfort. If it's there, you're happy. If it's not there, you're unhappy. It begins like that. It grows into thick fibers of mindness and permanence, expectation of permanence. So anyone offends you, anyone offends that something, your ego is hurt, that mindness is offended. So it manifests as a host of emotions. If you see yourself reacting sharply to something, you can conclude you're attached. It could be for an opinion. Maybe you're attached to a certain opinion, a certain political opinion. Someone says something, you want to throw something at them. People kill each other for their ideological opinions, right? What is it? It's ideological attachment. It leads to madness. You do mad things when you're attached. So, in the beginning, attachment seems innocuous. In the beginning, before it has grown and swelled into these thick bundles, it seems innocuous. But the attachment, you and I, we only become aware of it once it starts showing its problems. It's like anything, any physical ailment also you become aware of it only once it starts showing its problems. Years and years of neglect, and suddenly there are aches and pains in your body. That's when you become aware. The cause began very, very much earlier, maybe decades earlier. Same with attachment. It's a mental ailment. It's the biggest mental disease.
So we camouflage it with concern or taking care.
We camouflage it with a sense of love, concern, dare I say, passion, ambition, As they say in that movie Anand, itna pyar bhi acha nahi babu musha hai. Right? So attachment is a mental disease where you are uncontrollably entangled in that object of being. It began as a flow of thought, an uncontrolled flow of thought. It swelled into severe entanglement. Yes, Ankit.
You spoke of attachment as a relentless flow of thought. You gave that example of the batsman in the middle of the cricket pitch thinking whether he's going to score that 100.
Yeah.
But just a similar analogy, like you could be like sort of like your desire to become a better cricketer at a younger age or something could be bordering on what some others might perceive as obsessive. You're playing cricket on the field for 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day. The remaining 4 hours a day, you're sort of replaying all the shots that you played, how you could have perfected it. So there's a relentless flow of thought, but it's just with a desire to sort of improve yourself, hone your craft, and yeah, maybe for at
Yeah,
some point of time you'll retire and relinquish it, but yeah, until that time it's a relentless flow.
absolutely, absolutely. And this is the paradox. This is what most people don't understand. Relentless focused thought is meditation. Relentless focused thought, where your buddhi is guiding the thought, what needs to be done, what I ought to do. See, when I say all this about attachment, one pessimistic view can be, oh, that means I should not think about anything. I should not bother about anything. I should not get involved in anything. That's one pessimistic way to view whatever I'm saying. The solution, see, I said attachment starts as a flow of thought, an uncontrolled flow of thought. One solution to that would be stop all thoughts. Don't think about anything. I'm saying if that's practically possible. But that's a very pessimistic view of this. The way to take on attachment is to have the flow of thought under your control of a buddhi. That buddhi which gives a sense of value, a sense of proportion, a sense of direction to your thoughts. Where you put things in perspective. Buddhi brings that perspective. How important is something? Something is important. How important is it? Perspective. That's what buddhi brings. Right? What will help me achieve that something? Perspective. That is what buddhi brings. So when buddhi comes into a, say, for the same sake of the example, that cricketer, they will focus more on what needs to be done rather than that uncontrolled thought of, oh, what will happen. Right? So the way to take on attachment is not to let go of the thought. The way to take on attachment is to give it perspective. Right? To make it constructive and to develop a spirit of surrender. It works out to, oh, what do I need to do to make things work? And whether or not it works, it's out of my control. Let me do my part. Right? That thought will automatically free you from the desire for the outcome. That's the paradox. You're doing the action for the outcome, but you won't have an uncontrolled desire for the outcome. So it's twofold. You let go of the craving for the outcome, at the same time you do what you're supposed to do. You can't run away from your circumstances, you can't run away from your actions, you can't run away from your responsibilities, you can't run away from your own nature. If life has designed you to be a cricketer, you have to be a cricketer. The idea is, how do you manage your mindset? Right? So the solution to attachment is not running away. You have to continue to engage in that action, in that relation, in that work, but with the right mindset. And that right mindset is yajna. Yajna is the right mindset for you to combat attachment. What is yajna? Understanding that I have a role to play. Let me play to the best of my abilities. Let me practice those long hours. Whatever the world says, the world is silly, yaar. The world is only there to pass comments. Okay? It seems like you're getting very attached to your work. Nowadays I go, I meet some, just the other day I met someone and they said, it seems like you have become a bhogi now. Why? Because you're working long hours. They said that. Of course, they said it little, but the world has no, the world cannot get inside your head. You know what's inside your head, right? The world will only see what's outside. Oh, so they'll think, Because you're working so much or because you're doing so much, you're completely attached to it. You're completely obsessed with it. But obsession for action is different from obsession to outcome. Big difference. And the world will not be able to see it. And in fact, those who truly know you will not pass such loose comments. So there's no point in bothering about it. कुछ लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना, right? So forget what the world is thinking. Learn to make this distinction: attachment versus focus. Very different. You renounce your attachment to the outcome. You don't renounce the action. Right?
You spoke of perspective as well. So sometimes, that perspective, it could take like a decade or more, even decades to sort of come, right? When you're in the midst of scoring those hundreds, you're like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and
So chances are those who are able to understand it sooner are those who succeed. Those who are not, they don't even make it to the limelight. They don't even grow beyond a certain point. To actually succeed in any field, you have to have that thick skin, that little bit of objectivity, right? So a lot of these players go through mindset training. Lots of players, these people go through coaching, right, at a mental level for this purpose, so that they can quickly adapt and understand these things. Okay, very quickly, one verse. Number 29. प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत्. Those deluded by the gunas are attached to the function of the gunas. The one of perfect knowledge should not unsettle the dull-witted whose knowledge is imperfect. Therefore, he is again concluding a chain of thought. And earlier in verse number 26 also he said that you should not unsettle the minds of the ignorant. Remember that verse, a very important verse. You should not, we said earlier, you shouldn't preach, just practice. Turn yourself attractive. And don't try to unsettle the minds of the ignorant, those who are not ready to learn the lessons that they will eventually need to learn. Right? So present yourself as an example, something to be attracted by, but don't unnecessarily try to change someone's mindset. Those deluded by the gunas are attached to the functions of the gunas. So in another sense, he is saying that those who do not understand the distinction between Prakriti and Purusha, those deluded, completely colored and carried away by only the gunas, who have lost sight of the Purusha, completely entangled in Prakriti, they become attached to the functions of the gunas. Remember in verse number 27, he said, actions are performed by gunas. One who is deluded by egoism, by the gunas, thinks I am the doer. So delusion by gunas creates this kartritva bhavana, creates this bhoktritva bhavana, creates this complete entanglement in the gunas. Right? So those deluded by the gunas are attached to the functions of the gunas. One of perfect knowledge, one who has understood the distinction between Prakriti and Purusha, one who has gained detachment from the gunas, one who sees the gunas as theirs but not them. Your gunas are yours but not you. They belong to your material equipments, they belong to your Prakriti, to your body, mind and intellect. So one who understands this has perfect knowledge. Now one who has perfect knowledge and is living a life of objectivity should not unsettle the dull-witted. Don't go and unnecessary lecture and try to change others. First focus on perfecting yourself. He's repeating this again only because he's highlighting this as an important thing to understand. He's spending 2 verses on this concept. Do not unsettle the minds of the ignorant. Do not unsettle the dull-witted, whose knowledge is imperfect. People will learn their lessons when they have to. Knowledge is taken when they come to you directly or indirectly, then you may share in full what you need to share with them. But one who is not willing to learn, one whose shutters are closed, one who is not in a position to accept knowledge, don't waste your time and their time. Don't do it. All you can do is turn yourself attractive. And he concludes this entire flow of thought with this beautiful verse number 30, which is essentially the blueprint. It's the blueprint of Karma Yoga, right? Whatever we've been discussing, it's concluded in this verse. And if ever you want a definition, a complete definition of Karma Yoga with a hint of bhakti in it, right? It's in this verse number 30. We'll chant it and we'll perhaps say a word or two about it, and we'll continue it in the next class. Verse number 30. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyaadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yuddhasya vigatajvaraha. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyaadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yuddhasya vigatajvaraha. Renouncing all actions in me with thoughts resting on the self, free from hope and attachment, fight without fever. Yudhyasva, fight without fever. He's speaking to Arjuna in the middle of a battlefield. He's speaking to a warrior, and so he's saying fight. Fight implies take up your action, take up your duty, take up what you're supposed to do. That's the meaning of the word fight. He's not asking you to quarrel. Next time you'll be quarreling with your partner. Lord Krishna told me to fight. Fight means take up your action. Take up what you're supposed to do. To a warrior, he's saying fight. To you and me, play your part. That's what it means. And what? Play your part without mental fever. Without, hi, oh my God, this has to happen. I need to do this. I don't know. Without fever, without mental fever. Renouncing all actions in me, Brahmarpadam. With thoughts resting on the self, free from hope and attachment. So, at an intellectual level, at the level of the intellect, your thoughts must be resting on the self. At the level of your emotion, you must be free from hope and attachment. You must renounce all actions unto me. You must surrender, have that spirit of surrender. So, with surrender in your heart and with a clarity of the self in your head, with a fair understanding that all of this, all actions are meant for my spiritual journey. Ultimately, all actions, no action is an end in itself. They are all a means to the ultimate end of spiritual enlightenment. This is a yajna, and the ultimate conclusion of this yajna is samadhi, nothing less. Everything is an intermediary, but they are not the goal. That's what it means by focusing thoughts on the self. It means you must have a spiritual goal. Without a spiritual goal, Karma Yoga is not possible. Now, spiritual goal of enlightenment may be hard to conceive in the beginning, but at least self-development, self-improvement, detachment, these are conceivable spiritual goals. These must be at the top of your mind, or rather intellect, focusing your thoughts on these goals. And in your heart, surrender all actions unto me. When the Lord says me, he means the self. When the Lord says me, He means the higher goal, surrender, and develop a spirit of surrender. Means develop a spirit of I'm playing my part in the whole. I'm a spoke in the wheel for this larger goal. You must have that sense of surrender without hope and attachment, without the entanglement, without the kartritva and the bhoktritva. And at the physical level, fight. Means actually do the action, play a part. Dynamic action by the body. So all three need to come together. All three need to come together without a mental fever, an unnecessary, frantic excitement. While there is all sorts of bugles blowing around you, while everyone is losing their head around you, internally, within, you must be absolutely quiet and take up action with utmost objectivity. When all these come together, that is Karma Yoga. So remember this verse number 30, it's the blueprint. And had we discussed this the first day, perhaps we wouldn't understand much. But my hope is that after having spent 10 classes talking about Karma Yoga, now this makes little bit of sense. If it makes little bit of sense, then I have succeeded in my endeavor. If not, we're always there to try again. So we'll try again on Thursday to discuss further, and we'll take it further. We'll conclude now. And are there any quick questions if anyone wants to ask? If not, I can see. Okay. So if not, we'll see you on Thursday, same time at 7 a.m. Hari Om. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Very beautiful.
Hari Om, sir.